Hi, it's Becky with The Better Way to Homeschool. I hope you are enjoying your children today. They grow up so fast. My oldest is now at a Bible college and doing extremely well, but I no longer get to hear his voice every day. And I wanted to remind you that it's important that you take time to love on and hug your kids. I relearned actually, a valuable lesson today, and I wanted to share it with you. This one's important. As a homeschooler, sometimes you can feel like you're kind of in your own little world or you're in your own little box. And sometimes you might have a challenge with your child and you know exactly what they should do, but they're resistant. They don't want to change their way of thinking. And I wanted to encourage you to find another adult, another person that's an expert in whatever it is that you can have them encourage your child. So this is what it looks like in real life. My fifth grader-ish, he's 10, and he's really good at math, but he has terrible fine motor skills. He does math mentally, and he struggles with writing down the steps to the problem. Now, regardless of whether or not you agree that a child should write down the steps of the problem, I'd like you to hear me out. I've been struggling to get him to write the steps as he's solving his math problems down on the paper. The reason have been struggling, is twofold. One, he solves the problems in his head and he feels like, well, I don't need to show my work. That's one problem. The second problem is that he solves math a completely and totally different way than I do. And my brain does not understand how this 10-year-old gets to the answer. And so back about a decade or 15 years ago, I taught in a classroom for a couple years, and I had this one student that was extremely gifted, actually amazingly so, and he could absolutely solve everything in his head. And it turned out that when he grew up, he became just an amazing, brilliant Air Force, super smart kind of guy. And so as I've been working with my 10-year-old, I constantly have this other student in my mind where we would fight and go back and forth to get him to write down the steps of his problems. And he turned out okay, so why should I make my own son write down all the steps to the problems? Well, today I was blessed to be able to introduce my son to two experts in the field of mathematics. They teach at the local charter school, and one of them is a math whiz, and she does all kinds of tutoring, and the other one is actually my second oldest son's math teacher. And I introduced them to my son as math experts, and I said, could you please explain to this child why it might be necessary for him to write down the steps in mathematics? And they were able to encourage him that while he's able to do arithmetic level math in his head right now, that because he's so smart, because he's so gifted in mathematics, he will likely end up in some of the higher level maths, like the calculuses or trigonometry type things, algebra, advanced algebra, and some of those problems will take a page or more to solve. And that in the world of mathematics, you need to be able to prove your work. It is not acceptable to write a complicated problem down and to say that the answer is 3. You actually need to prove it step by step, how you got from the problem itself to the answer. And I can't tell you that there is no price tag on the reinforcement and encouragement that those experts in math were able to give to my son. They were able to validate what I was saying, that it's important that he writes down the steps to his problems. They were able to validate his issues of, because his brain solves things differently, they don't line up with the way that either a math book or I would teach him how to solve something. And he struggled with writing those steps down in a way that I could see that he was getting the right answer. And yet these experts were able to encourage him that the steps are necessary. They're a discipline. They're a process. And without that process, when he gets to those higher level maths, it's very likely that he'll make some simple mistakes as he's solving them in his head, and that won't translate to being able to solve the things that his brain will be required to solve. So the experts were able to, number one, back me up. And that was huge, to have other adults, not related, to come alongside and say, yes, your mom knows what she's talking about. That's huge. The next thing is that I was able to learn from them that even though his brain solves things differently, in order for him to prove what he's doing, that he should take the time to write down the steps in the way that his brain comprehends, so that I can really establish, does he really understand the rules of mathematics? That was big for me. And the third thing was that they were able to give him a reason and purpose in the tedious process of writing down the math steps that he finds very simplistic at this point. And they were able to spur him on to do better things. And so I want you to take a moment to think about any areas that your students may be struggling, whether it be in their basic things like penmanship or mathematics or facts or writing, or maybe they don't enjoy and maybe they struggle doing things like science or history. Maybe it's that their room is a pit. I don't know. Your child is very likely struggling with something, because I know all 5 of my children are struggling with something. Actually, I struggle with things too. And take the time to look and find people that you would consider to be experts. They don't have to have a certification, they don't have to have a degree, but build them up in front of your children and then ask the question, what do you think about this? Or how would you recommend that this person overcomes this one challenge in their life? And then just understand that when we work together as a team like that, we're not ganging up on our kids, but we're validating our own words. Sometimes the experts can put it into words in a way that not only makes sense to our kids, but makes better sense to us as well. And then they're not so emotionally charged by it. It's not a power struggle to get them to do what you've been asking to, but now there's value and now there's purpose behind the why. And so I just wanted to encourage you that today, that if you're struggling with anything with your kids, look around. There is somebody that is good at whatever it is they are weak at. And especially if it's something that's causing contention or strife within your home, don't fight with your kids, but empower them and encourage them that there are people out there that can help them, that you are their biggest ally. No one loves them. No one is as invested in their success as you are. But that there are other people out there that they can learn from and that they can glean from. And sometimes it takes 2 or 3 different people saying the same thing before it gets through to our brains. I know it's one of those things that I hear my husband say often, that I will say something like, oh, my friend just shared this and it's this great revelation. And he'll say, I've been sharing that with you for years and you've just never heard me. And while I wish I could say that I always heard things well the first time or with the first voice, it's often in the depth of the layers of hearing it through different people from different perspectives that brings it all together. So take a look at your kids, look what they're struggling with, find somebody that you can pair them with, take the time to encourage and to lift up, prep that other person in advance so that they're not necessarily blindsided. But I just wanted to encourage you today, because it made such a huge difference in my son's attitude, that I know that if you can find someone to come alongside you, then it'll make a big difference for your kids too. And if you have any questions, or if there's anything that you think I can come alongside and encourage your kids with, go ahead and email, or not email, but put a comment after this video or at the bottom, and let me know what it is you'd like to hear about or perspectives on, and maybe I can do a little video clip that can encourage you or your kids as well. So anyway, this is Becky with A Better Way to Homeschool. If this has been valuable or helpful to you, please subscribe to this YouTube channel. I make homeschooling videos as often as I have time to. Right now I'm hiding out while my kids are waiting for lunch, but I will make videos and I will post them out on YouTube. I do have a website, abetterwaytohomeschool.com, where there's all kinds of resources out there for you. Go ahead and subscribe to that as well so that you don't miss anything that might encourage you in your homeschooling journey. Have a wonderful day and enjoy your kids.